All right, I'm back for session 2 in my video series of going from knowing nothing to being competent and excelling at web design, starting with HTML basics. Section 2, we're starting out learning how to create a table. Before displaying data, we must first create the table that will contain the data by using the table element. Okay? The table element will contain all of the tabular data we plan on displaying. In index.html, create a table just above the closing body tag. Sure. And I gave space and everything. Table. Excellent. In many programs that use tables, the table is already predefined for you, meaning that it contains the rows, columns, and cells that will hold data. In HTML, all of these components must be created. The first step in entering data in the table is to add rows using the table row element, tr. In the example above, 2 rows have been added to the table. Add 2 rows. Okay. And I want it with entering between them. See whether that matters. Just copy, paste. And 2 rows. Take a row, take a row. Why didn't that check me off? There we go. Okay. Table data. Rows aren't sufficient to add data. Each cell element must also be defined. In HTML, you can add using a table data element, TD. Okay. So within a TR, that makes sense. They're separated. You do TD, and then a value, and then NTD. 73 and 81 were entered in the one row that exists. By adding 2 points, we created 2 cells of data within the one row, so 2 columns, I assume. If the table were displayed in the browser, it would show a table with 1 row, 2 columns. There we go. In the second row, I had 3 cells with this information. Okay. Second row, so not that, but here, let's just do 3. And then contents are Adams Green Works. Let's see if the apostrophe gives us grief. 14 package items. It's not. Excellent. Table headings. Table data doesn't make much sense without titles to describe what the data represents. Sure. To add titles to rows and columns, you can use the table heading element th. Table heading. Okay. Table row, table data, table heading. Within table. Table heading is used just like a table data element, except with a relevant title. Just like table data, table heading must be placed within a row. Okay, so it's a row heading. Okay, create a new row, create a heading with the scope to columns. Okay. And write Saturday, Sunday, and do a second row. Scope is row, temperature, okay. Second row, gonna be 2 data entries for the 2 columns. So it's gonna be a blank row. Let's find out. New row is added. To hold the three. Oh, okay. Row holds headings. Blank heading. Gotcha. Saturday, Sunday. Yep. Second row. You add a row. Scope equals row. Scope equals call. And then also the scope. Row for row. Column for column. HTML is a little strange, but analyzing it makes it more understandable. Yeah, it makes sense. In the first row, add 3 table headings. The heading should contain the following data in order. Okay. Table row already made. Table heading and table heading. 3 of them. And scope goes first. Yes. Scope within T8. And then content. Okay, we're seeing a pattern there. Scope equals call and company name. Scope equals call number of items to ship. Scope equals call next action. Now add a scope attribute. Oh. What if I get rid of the scope? Nothing. Okay. I don't know why it has to be explicit. That's fine. Table borders. So far, tables you've created have been a little difficult to read because they have no borders. Sure. Border used to be added using the border attribute. Set equal to an integer for the thickness. Deprecated now, so don't use it. But other people might have it. Browser will read it correctly. We use CSS for CSS to add style to HTML documents because it helps us separate the structure of a page from how it looks. Okay. Take a course later. Yep. Use CSS. Get above uses CSS instead of HTML to show table borders. We're going to need some more data in the table. Add the following data to the table. Make sure to place it after the second table row. Okay, after the second table row, before table ends. Yeah, sure. Control C, Control V, Control Enter. Okay, so we didn't do it. Interesting. Okay. What if the table contains data that spans multiple columns? For example, a personal calendar of events across multiple hours or days. Data can span using call span. The attribute accepts an integer greater than or equal to 1 to denote the number of columns it spans across. So out of town spans 2 columns. Starting at 0, I guess, or 1, whatever indexing HTML uses. Example above, out of town spans Monday and Tuesday. And down is Wednesday. Yep. Okay. The index.html span a TD element across 2 columns. Atoms. Let's just go to the bottom. To another tr slash tr and do td call span equals 2. I have to figure out what the quotation marks I use first, not data. Sure. Slash td. Let's see how that looks. Nice. Spanning rows. Row span is used for data that spans multiple rows. Perhaps an event goes on for multiple hours on a certain day. Exception integer greater than or equal to 1 to denote the number of rows it spans across. Yep. Sure, same thing for rows. Nothing more forward. No. Okay. Fence 2 for work, fence 3 for relax. First two rows contain an empty cell and the 2 components. Second morning, work. Relax 3. Afternoon. Fourth, dinner. Second row contains morning along with work. I'll just see it. Okay. TR. Table data. Row span equals 2. Color coding is nice. And then it's hi. Slash D. What did I do wrong? Row span equals TD videos. Oh. Oh, I needed an end TR. I thought I would miss that, and I did. I still don't see it spanning 2 rows. Let me try putting it. There we go. I didn't have another row to fill into, so it didn't go. Let's go up another. Just to validate. Yep, so I'll append to the end and then go there. What if I put it above? Now I'm guessing that it will go here and push the 1 in enter order to the right. Table body. Over time, a table can grow to contain a lot of data and become very long. When this happens, the table can be sectioned off so that it is easier to manage. Long tables can be sectioned off using the table body element tbody. The table body element should contain all of the table's data, excluding the table's headings. More on this later. Okay. Table body. All the table's data, excluding the table headings. An example, all the data is in it. Headings are also in it. We'll change it later. And close rows. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do they mean that? We'll see. No, the table. No. They mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Table. Let's see. T-body. Tab everything. T-body. I'm getting sensitive about being too far here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Strength fitness. I need it down here. Shift tab, Control Enter. Okay. Table head. In the last exercise, the table's headings were kept inside the table's body. When the table's body is sectioned off, however, it also makes sense to section off the table's header using a T-head. Okay, sure. You can use the scope attribute on TH elements to indicate whether it's a row or a column. Close the first row of the table. T-head. Easy enough. T-head. Slash T-head. Feed. Oh, that's pretty. The bottom part, long table. T-foot. Add a table footer inside this data. Okay. For the last TR, do a let's click this up. Beautiful. Last table. T foot TD total, and then table data 28, and then slash T foot table total 20. Cool. Styling with CSS. Tables are very bland. No border. One color is black. Typeface is the same for everything else. CSS is cascading style sheets, language that web developers use to style HTML. You can use CSS to style tables for everything mentioned. The code in the example above demonstrates just some of the various table aspects that you can style using CSS properties. We've included a CSS file containing instructions for styling HTML content. Go over here, set font size of all table headings in the table data to 18. All right, background, EEE, some color. Margin 0, padding 0. I don't like the gets off screen. Oh well. Navigation, box sizing, border box, background color, some color, overflow. Yeah. Overflow auto, padding, something, pixels, position relative, top 0, width 100%, the index 99. Brings it to the front or to the back or something. Upper something, padding margin, lower something, color white, display inline block, font weight, font size, we want to change that to 18, letter spacing, margin, padding, text transform, uppercase. Maybe that's for the column headers, we'll see. Table header, no, maybe I don't want to change that. 16. Table head, color, font weight, letter spacing, table head, table data. Oh. No. Font size. No, if I just add a font size 18 px. Let's see if that's it. Yes, sir. I was looking for changing it, but we just want to add it. I don't like that, but that's fine. Alt period. Review. Okay, didn't want to change anything except for that. That's fine. Module complete. Skip. Wine festival schedule. Oh. Can I skip? Do I want to skip this? I only have one more project. Wine festival schedule. The Aguilar family. Aguiar family is hosting their annual wine festival, and they asked you to build a web page for the event schedule. Let's see if I can skip that. Yes. I'll save my project. Intro to HTML forms. This Google. Sorry, grabbed a snack. If you commented last video that you hate the sounds of me eating, I'm already recording this before I saw that. And if you love it, excellent. HTML forms. Write down information. Collect information to send somewhere else. Are there any other forms you've interacted with? Yeah, many. This is a form. And a form works. Okay. In this section, add a form. Under the provided comment. The add your code below comment. Could be an action and a method. Form action equals /practice .html space method equals post. And then this ends down here, I suppose. /form. Add a heading with the text. Page 1. Davey makes good burgers. And some details. And you will love his burgers. Beautiful. Text input. You want to create an input field in your form. We'll need the help of the input element. The input element has a type attribute, which determines how it renders on the web page. Let's create a login form for our user. Inside the form element, add an input element with a type attribute of text. Okay. Input type equals text. No, we're not submitting it. Let's give it a name. Username. Value equals Davey. Okay, let's continue with adding a label. In the previous exercise, we created an input element, but we didn't include anything to explain what the input's used for. For a user to properly identify an input, we use the appropriately named label element. Label has an opening and closing tag and displays text that is written between the opening and closing tags. Sure. So similar to P paragraph. To associate a label and an input, the input needs an ID attribute. We then assign the for attribute of the label element with the value of the ID attribute of the input. Form action equals something, method equals post. Label for equals label of meal, what do you want to eat, and label break input type equals text, name equals food, ID equals meal. So match for to ID. Okay. What do you want to eat? Look, now users know what the input's for. Another benefit is when the element is clicked, the corresponding input is highlighted or selected. Add a label associated with the included input. Login. Doesn't we want label for equals username to match ID. And I want to call that username. Then we end the label. Click this. Click that. Now the start statement. Beautiful. And up here, it updates. Nice. Password input. Think about all those times we have put a sensitive information, the password or PIN into a form. Wouldn't want it to be seen by anyone. Luckily, type equals passport or replace with asterisks or dots. Code provides an example of how to create a password field. Okay. So we've got label 4 equals password, input type equals password ID equals user password to match the 4. And input doesn't have any closing. Even though the password field obscures the text when the form is submitted, the value of the text is sent. To complete it, new password, add an element. Input element, yep. Assign the ID. Set the attribute to password. Set the name. Send the ID associated with the second label. Use a password. The name equals user password. Right. Password. Nice. Number input. We've now gone over 2 type attributes for input related to text, but we might want our users to type in a number, in which case we can set the type attribute to number. By saying type equals number for an input, we can restrict to just numbers and plus minus period. We can also provide a step attribute which creates arrows inside the input field to increase or decrease by the value of the step attribute. Below is the code. Okay, arrows on the right. Person, would you like? How many patties would you like? Index, we start a form. Make a burger. Label that needs an input. How many patties would you like? Input type equals number. Name equals amount. Or I doubt that the order matters for type name, step, etc. Step equals 1. And ID equals amount. Notice we started adding sections and other semantics to help organize our form elements. Want to learn more? Take that. Section class equals patties. Section class equals protein. 234 times 600 step equals 5, 5, 3. Okay, that's good. I checked. So if I do 4, it'll increment to the nearest 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sure. Range inputs. Using an input type equals number is a great way to allow users to type in any number of their choosing, but if we want to limit what numbers our user can type, we may consider a different type. We can use range, which gives us slider. Okay. To set the minimum and maximum values of the slider, we assign values to the min-max attribute of the input. Sure. We could also control how smooth and fluid the slider works by assigning a step. Smaller steps will make it more smooth, whereas larger will make it more noticeable. Label 4 equals volume, volume control, volume for range from 0 to 100 steps of 1. And that would be pretty smooth. Let's give our user an option for how they want to cook their patties. Do this by adding a slider to the existing form. In this section with class cook. Okay. And an input. Set ID and name to doneness. Also type to range. Okay. Input type equals range. Name equals doneness. ID equals doneness. So what's it do now? Completely continuous. Okay. Okay. Sure. Newly created input set min to 0. I guess we just go min equals 0, max equals 5, step equals 0.5. Easy enough. Discrete steps is checkbox input. So far, the type of inputs we've allowed were all single choices. We've presented multiple options to users and allowed them to select a number of options. Checkboxes, type equals checkbox. Examine the code. Okay, one checkbox per item. And then you break so they're on the same line. Okay. There are assigned values to the value attribute of the checkboxes. Values are not visible, which is why we use a label. And label pepperoni. Value equals pepperoni. So what's the point of the value? Each input has the same value for the name attribute. Using the same name for each checkbox groups the inputs together. Remember, they each have their unique ID to pair with a label. So name goes to the name topping. Name topping, name topping, name topping. But ID anchovy matches for anchovy. matches value range, shall we? Alright, let's do it. The selection. In this section with class equals toppings, there are two labels but no associated input elements. Add an input with the first label. Input ID equals name equals type equals value equals and ID equals lettuce name equals topping type equals checkbox value matches ID equals lettuce. Check and check. And ID equals tomato. It'd still be there. Okay. Because it's where it is in the code, not where the ID is set to. Add another input. Input ID equals tomato value name equals topping type equals checkbox value equals tomato. Make a third. Let's copy and paste this time. Oh. Let's append it. Another cheese topping cheese. And then add a label for equals. Let's put this as cheese and put this as mustard. So it happens. So it looks fine, but probably back end associated is not for equals cheese. Okay. Let's continue with the radio button input. So this checkboxes work well if we want to present users with multiple operations and let them choose one or more of the options. However, there are cases where we want to present multiple options and only allow for the user to make one selection, like if they agree or disagree with the terms and conditions. So you have a form, the P, what is the sum of 1 plus 1? Input type equals radio, ID equals 2, name equals answer, value equals 2. Label 4 equals 2, so that ties to the ID. And then outside of the brackets, 2, and then in the label break, input type equals radio, ID equals 11, name equals answer, value equals 11. And a label which renders radio to radio 11. Notice radio buttons don't display their value. Just I say label. Same name makes only one pressable because name equals answer for both. We can give our user the option to make the burger into a cheeseburger. Let's use radio buttons in this section. Element with a class of cheesy. There are two labels that don't have an associated input. An input associated. The created input should have an ID for yes. Type radio. Name cheese. Value yes. Okay. Here we go. Before label. Input type equals radio. ID equals yes. Name equals cheese. Value equals yes. And that's all within the brackets. Copy that. Okay. And then paste it for the no. What's wrong? No, ID value must be unique. Okay. It equals now. Value equals now. But it's still cheese. So now we see yes or no. Okay. Drop down list. Radios for a few visible options, but if we have a lot of options, we can do a drop down. So then you have label for equals lunch. What's for lunch? Select ID equals lunch. Name equals lunch. Option value equals pizza, pizza, curry, curry, salad, salad, ramen, ramen, tacos, tacos. Within, then you end the select. Okay, option within select. Then you end the form. Notice in the code that we're using the element select to create the drop-down list. To populate the drop-down list, we had multiple option elements. Yep, each with a value attribute by default. Only one of these can be selected. The text rendered is the text included between the opening and closing option tags. However, it's the value of the value. It is the value of the value attribute that is used in form submissions. Notice the difference in the text and value capitalization. Lowercase capital. Capital shows up. Value. No. Okay, so if you select pizza, it'll be lowercase because the value is lowercase. Information from this input field will be sent using the name, the select. In this case, lunch. And the value of the option. Lunch equals pizza. Okay. Buns. In section element. Class equals bun type. Label 4 equals bun. What type of bun would you like? Then we go select. ID equals something. Name equals something. And then option value equals something. And then something, and then option. And then we will end with select. Now let's see what we put in. Class, yeah. Label and a select element with the name of bun. ID of bun. Inside the select, add 3 options. 1, 2, 3. First, sesame lowercase and sesame uppercase. Sesame. Potato, the value lowercase, and then to display the text uppercase. And then this whatever, sesame, potato, rye. Now if we look, beautiful. Next section. Okay, data list input. Even if we have an organized drop-down list, the list has a lot of options. It could be tedious for users to scroll through an entire list and locate an option. Data list is used with an input type equals text. Input creates a text field that users can type into and filter options. Perfect. Label, input type equals text. Data list type equals text. List equals cities, ID equals city, name equals city. Data list ID equals cities. So that, ties to here. And then a bunch of options. And then you in the data list. We have an input. And that has a list attribute. Input associated with data list via the inputs list attribute and the ID of okay. So list has to match data list ID. From the code provided, the following form is rendered. And when the field is selected, you get the options. And you can search, I suppose. Yeah. No, you can use what you typed in. Probably a way to restrict that down the line. Time to add some sauce. Data list element. Class of sauce selection. How do I do that? Alright, input. Type equals text, list equals sauces. ID equals sauce, name equals sauce. So now we got a data list. ID equals sauces. Is that all I want? Yep. So you can just type inside, add 3 options and close it. So let's see. We've got option value equals something, and start this option, and 3 of those it said, and then I want to end the data list. That doing those, they should be ended. Don't mean to save. Okay. Ketchup. Mayo. And aioli. Oh, interesting. It shows what's going to be inputted. I'm going to type aioli. Aioli will come up. Okay. Text area elements. An input element with type equals text creates a single row input field for users to type in information. Oh, no, it's good. So what did they do differently? Data list equals sources. I don't know. Section. Did I have that? Maybe, yeah. Anyway. An input text creates a single row field for users to type in information. However, there are cases where users need to write in more information, like a blog post. Use text area instead of input. Just a bigger text field to write more text. Add rows and columns to determine the amount of rows and columns for it. 5 by 30 goes like that. You can click and drag to expand. Nice. Label, and then text area ID equals name equals rows equals calls equals. And if we wanted an even bigger text field, click and drag. When we submit the form, the value of the text area is the text written inside the box. If we want to add default value, we can include it. Okay. Sure. This code will render that contains pre-covered lot of options. Users might still by their ideas. Okay. Anything else you'd like to add? Create a text area. And then end text area. And within it, they just type whatever. So we go ID equals something, name equals something, rows equals something, calls equals something. ID and name are extra. So 3, or rows 3 calls for 40. That'll be pretty big. Interestingly, you can start populates with some spaces. And if I go outside of it, it expands automatically. Yep, okay. Now add default text. Okay, just right here. Right. That'll start there. Who's that? Yeah, that's all considered part of it. So if I consider 5 spaces, and now it will behave as expected. Don't enter unless you want that extra stuff all counted. Good to know, good to know. Submit form. So remember, once the purpose is to collect information, you just click on it when they're finished with the information in the form, and they're ready to send it off. And our form is starting somewhere up here, right here. Form action equals submission. HTML method equals best. Now that we've gone over how to create various input elements, let's go over how to submit reliable input element into the type to submit. Form input type equals submit, value equals send. Okay. Notice in the code snippet that the value assigned to the input shows up in the button. There isn't a value. Default text of submit shows up. Let's now add this element to make our forms complete. At the bottom, inside the element section class equals submission, add a submit button using the input element. Input type equals submit, value equals something. And then and the form down here. So that's it. What do we want? Value equals submit. That's one way to do it. Another way would be to put in nothing. Oh. Put nothing 107. Oh, cool. Someone will be resubmitted. Review. Nice work interacting with extremely common and useful form element. If you want to challenge yourself, create a form with multiple fields to accept user input. Add 2 separate sets of radio buttons or check button. And then search how to add a placeholder to an input field. The placeholder shows up when the field has no value. And okay, let's do that. HTML, create a placeholder text. AI, input type equals text. password for search, URL, telephone number, text area. Okay, let's do this one. So before submit, I suppose. So we'll go section class equals. Oh, what should I add? Delivery day. And then we go label for equals just untice this. Label equals days. What day do you want this burger? And label. So then we go radio, which was looked at cheese. Section spin. I guess we want to do it like this. I'm going to delete this for now to see if it works. Like that. With the label instead of the span. Input equals radio. Name equals days. ID equals M. Value equals M. One equals M. Tuesday. Tape equals radio equals days. Date equals T. Value equals T. And then label T. T. Thank you for Monday. Tuesday. What if we want Monday? Just because we don't have much space. Tuesday. Okay, auto indents. And then the temporary text. Let's put that in the sauces. What kind of sauce would you like? I guess we could also break to bring that down. That's probably cleaner. And then and sauces. This placeholder. Input WS text. Oh, let's see what happens. Enter your sauce. I want that to be there. So right now they're just next to each other. We want it to be input what is it? Just this placeholder equals enter your sauce. Yes. Okay, cool. Just add placeholder equals. And we finished. Skip.